Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I want to discuss E.T.C Band Manager and some creative ways to use him and try and get the most out of the card. So for those unaware on how this works, while building a deck, assemble a band of 3 cards, Battlecry, discover one. If that's not immediately obvious what you use the card to do, that's fine. It's basically, you put him in 1 card slot of your deck and he allows you to put in 3 extra cards into his discover pool. Now these cards won't naturally be in your deck, it's just whenever you play E.T.C he can discover these ones. Okay, so how do I think you should use E.T.C best? Well, this is an example of how I think you should not use him, is putting in 3 slow cards for different situations. Here we have Theater, which is situationally useful, this is situationally useful, this is situationally useful, but they're all slow. There's no option here for like a faster matchup. You're basically playing a 4-mana 4/4 vanilla because all of these cards would be unplayable. So you don't want to be doing something like this. Instead, there's orientations that I prefer. For example, this is a random mid-range Shaman deck, and the orientation we have here, we have 1 finisher card with Bloodlust, which is a very situational card. You don't always want to put this in your deck, but sometimes it is very good. Another situational card in Theater, good against some matchups, but generally too weak to put in the 30 card slot. And then we have just a generically fine, okay, good card that's cheap, that we can just pick most of the time if these 2 other options aren't favorable for a matchup. So this way you've got kind of all bases covered. If you do come into a situation where either of these 2 are useful, you can pick it, but if not, you can just go for the default to the Wind Chill and have it like that. Next, similar sort of idea, this is a Control Warrior deck. Something I just picked off HS Replay. And for the band, we have the Jailer as an option, which you're not going to need in every single matchup, but it's going to be good in certain ones. Same thing goes for Theater. And then we have Provoke, which is like an anti-aggro one. So we have like anti-aggro with Provoke, we have anti-combo with Theater, and we have sort of anti-control with the Jailer. You could also argue to change that slot maybe for Rivendare War Rider as an anti-control tool. Something you're not going to pick in most matchups, but in certain ones it's going to really excel. And this way, you're never sort of caught out in the open with E.T.C. You always have a play that you'll take. Probably going to be Provoke most of the time, but these other 2 are useful depending on the matchup. And you can see Theater as a decent option to put in the pool. Doesn't mean you're going to be picking him a lot of the time. It's just one of those cards that really are very strong in certain matchups. Next, this is Big Spell Mage deck. And this is a creative use of E.T.C to get around the deck building restrictions. So, of course, with Big Spell Mage, you have Belinda, so you want to just only play the big spells. But with E.T.C, because the spells aren't actually in a deck, they're just in the Discover pool, you can get away with playing some spells. So I've chosen Flurry here and Wildfire. Flurry is going to be a bit better against aggro decks as an option. Wildfire is just a generically very useful card in this sort of deck because we're running the Apprentice and we're running the Mordresh as well as Magister. Sometimes you're not going to want to be picking the Wildfire because you want to replay the Drakefire Amulet, but in a lot of cases you're not going to be able to get this thing down before Magister anyway, so just picking a generically useful Wildfire is going to be pretty good. Flurry is going to excel against aggro decks to buy you a bit more time to get to your other stuff. And Theater I put in there as well, just for like anti-combo deck potential, which is going to be a theme for a lot of these. You could also put in some other situational cards like Solid Alibi that you can't normally run. You get the idea. Next, this is something I saw from Donkey on Twitter. Playing E.T.C to get around another deck building restraint, which is for Vandal Rogue. So for Vandal Rogue, you aren't actually allowed to play minions that cost less than 2 mana, because the idea is you go Bone Spike plus Vandar to enable Vandar, and he'll be a 2-mana Vandar, discount everything else in your deck by 3, but if you have a 2-mana minion left in the deck, that doesn't work. But because of E.T.C, you can suddenly put in Astalor in the deck, which gives this deck a nice win con in Bran Astalor later on in the game, which normally you didn't have. You have to win through just pure tempo, or win through like Mr. Smite on Edwin, for instance, or Draco or something like this. But being able to actually put Astalor in the deck is very good. He's chosen to also put in Spammy and Theater. Theater, sure, I don't know about Spammy so much in this deck, but sure, it was something he picked. I wouldn't personally go for this particular deck list. I think you could maybe build this deck a little bit better, but it's a cool idea, and it's a nice way to get a finisher for the deck where the other finishers were a little weak. And finally, we have from Otsuna, he's posted E.T.C in a Reno Blood DK. So the nice thing here, he is running 2 Vampiric Bloods anyway, but because you want this card, but it's a Reno deck. But with the E.T.C, it allows you to play some duplicates. We have Hematurge, Asphyxiate, and Blood Boil he's chosen. There's other ones you could go for. He's picked 2 Soul Stealers in the deck naturally anyway, and 2 Vampiric Bloods. So the Reno's not always going to be active for this one. But if you really wanted him to be always active, you could maybe take one of these Soul Stealers and put it inside this part instead. But it's just a nice way to get around a deck building restraint again. But they're just some ideas that I saw. I think generally for E.T.C you just want to be picking one generically good card or one anti-aggro card, and then 2 situational cards to go with it. That way the card's never a dead draw. Sometimes it's a bit weak, but it's never super weak, let's say that. Hope you liked the video, guys, and let me know in the comments below any creative ways you found to make E.T.C work. I'd love to hear them. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.